It is my pleasure to present the next two speakers. I don't know about the rest of you, but I came specifically for this talk because it's a talk that I hold really dear to my heart. Kaljug mein Kirtan Pardhana. That's the title of the talk. And how participating in Kirtan helps applying the message of Sri Guru Granth Sahib. And as you can tell, our speaker is Dr. Inderjit Kaur, and she has the unique distinction amongst so many talented people here of holding 2 PhDs. She's a scholar of Gurbani Kirtan, and she's currently teaching at the music department of the University of California, Berkeley. She holds 2 PhDs, one in musicology and the other in economics. I want to personally congratulate her for finishing her 2nd PhD a month ago. Congratulations. She holds diplomas in North Indian classical music and in South Indian classical dance. Her research seeks to understand the history and contemporary practice of Kirtan and its role in Sikh life. Inderjit has published and presented widely for the Academy as well as the community. She's currently working on a book that explores the meaningfulness of Kirtan in everyday lives of Sikhs. She would love to hear from you about your experiences. Her email is in the handout, so please feel free to communicate with her. With that, I'm going to turn it over to her because we're all looking forward to her talk.
Thank you, Jajol Singh, for the kind introduction. I would like to reiterate that request. My research is really aiming to represent diverse voices of the Sangat. So as a scholar, I hope not to just write what I understand and what I perceive as what Gurbani says or what is Kirtan or what is the meaning of Kirtan, but really what the Sangat and different parts of the Sangat feel. So I would love to hear from you, people from different backgrounds, different gender, different educational, professional backgrounds, ages, all that. So thank you for that. I would like to also thank Dr. Inderjit Singh for inviting me to speak here. It's always a pleasure for me, very meaningful, because I sort of grew up in this community presenting and singing, and that's how I came to want to do a 2nd PhD in this particular topic and try to learn more about Gurbani Kirtan and of course Gurbani. I would like to congratulate all of you on this joyous occasion of Gurgadi Divas of Sri Guru Granth Sahib, and it is really a joyful and meaningful occasion for all of us and for me personally.
Can you increase the voice, please?
Yeah.
Let's try this. Okay, we'll try one more time, and if this doesn't work, we'll shift to that.
Yeah, we can shift to this. One quick request. As you see the talk, you will notice this young gentleman in the center walking around with cards. If you have questions, please take a card from him, write down your question, and he will collect the question from you. And after the 20-minute talk, I can handle your questions for Dr. Kaur. So could you raise your hand again, please? And please signal to him and he'll come and give you a card and you can write down questions. If you can come forward now and see if somebody's interested, that would be great. And then this, I'm going to put the mic next to you.
Actually, I do have one more request regarding my research. Just allow me that. So I've been invited to talk at UC Davis next May on Kirtan in the Sikh diaspora, and especially in the diaspora of the Indian Ocean worlds. So I'm really requesting people who grew up in East Africa in particular, or who know people from there to please contact me. I would love to hear about your memories and your experiences of Kirtan in that part of the world. So with that, now I would like to start with my talk. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So the picturization here on the screen is of a very famous and beloved Sakhi that we all know of. And here Guru Nanak is giving us an example of what I call ethical action. And a lot of what is happening in Kaljug, my talk, I don't know if it was announced, maybe it wasn't. My talk is Kaljug mein Kirtan Pardhana. So I want to start about thinking about Kaljug and how Guru Nanak made an intervention in Kaljug, in what ways. And of course it was through Gurbani, but it was also through his actions where he inspired us to speak truth to power, to challenge those who have wealth and power if their ethics are not virtuous. So here we see that he is declining the hospitality of someone who's wealthy in terms of money but poor in terms of ethics, and accepting the hospitality of someone who's poor in terms of wealth but wealthy in terms of ethics. And that's a very, very powerful message for Kaljug that I would like to foreground today. And he's doing something more, he's so it's quite a rich Sakhi, and the picturization is also quite rich. He is challenging the wealthy person, but he's also showing us through squeezing the food that was prepared in these two households, and showing that how even ingesting food that is associated with the unethical is something that may infuse us with a kind of ras which we don't want. And that is a theme I want to take in this forward as my analytical framework in this talk, because in Kirtan, of course, we talk about ras, and Ram Ras Pyare is a very important concept in Gurbani, and ras is something that is within us. Ram Ras, we drink ras, we eat ras, we taste ras. And here is a picturization where Guru Nanak is saying, don't eat this food which is associated with the unethical, because your body will be infused with a kind of ras that you do not want. So my talk today then is framed by ideas of Kirtan, of ras, ethics, and ethical action. Now, Guru Nanak used these means where he would go around and enact these courageous moves to challenge people and their ethics. But another very important means that he used to spread his message of ethics and social justice was Kirtan, was the musical rendition of Gurbani. So why did Guru Sahib think that music was something that added something to Gurbani? And that is something that I want to talk about today. So Kaljug mein Kirtan Pardhana is the theme of my talk, and more specifically I want to talk about how Gurbani Kirtan helps in applying the message of Sri Guru Granth Sahib. I think that in terms of understanding Gurbani, I think a lot of us understand it to a pretty good extent. Where we fall short, I think, is in applying. I think our understanding is way more ahead than our application. And if we have to make a step forward, the gap is in the application. So this year's theme of the conference is really something that speaks very much to me. So how does Gurbani Kirtan help us in applying the message of Sri Guru Granth Sahib? And there, of course, Gurbani itself is the message, itself contains the message. But the second point is, and that is the point I want to make, is that music amplifies the message of Gurbani. And how does it do that? I will present a little bit of music analysis. So, both a little bit about Gurbani and a little bit about music. So Gurbani makes us aware of our participation in Kaljug. And this is again a point I wanted to foreground, is that often when we think of Kaljug, we think of some kind of vague concept, and that we have no role in it or no part in it, or we are not responsible for sustaining and maintaining it. And I wanted us to sort of listen to Gurbani here, that Gurbani says, no, it is our karam. "Ae neech karam har mere." So it is our actions actually that sustain Kaljug. It is not something that just happens. Right? And what kind of karam are neech karam? What are unethical actions? I think Gurbani tells us. And today I will use one shabad and one rendition of that shabad to make my points about Gurbani and about music. So how does music amplify any message? Music amplifies not just Gurbani, but music can amplify all kinds of messages, and we know that. Music is very powerful. And some of the means that music uses, music moves us. And I want to go back to the concept of ras that I alluded to earlier. It generates ras in our body. And we can feel that. Often you listen to a piece of music or to Gurbani Kirtan and you say, that really moved me. You feel something moving inside you. And you feel a certain experiential sort of sensation. And that is what I call ras. Ras is often translated as taste or the essence of something. And through my research and through talking to various Sangat members and others more and more, I'm inclined to define ras as a bodily sensation, as an experiential aspect of our lives. So we get infused with a certain feeling, and that is ras. And ras can be of many types. Now, music is particularly good through intonation, through the melodies, through the particular phrasing, through repetition and variation, and through voice quality, and there are many others. Music is particularly effective in moving us and in generating ras in our bodies. So what does it, more and more researchers are coming to the conclusion that music or musical sound by itself does not have the ability to create a particular effect or ras. It is created through associations. Okay? So raw musical sound itself does not have those properties. What enables the music to create a particular effect or create a particular ras depends upon text, if it is singing, on the song text, meaning song lyrics, on the context, where it is, the environment, the setting, who is there, associations, what kind of associations are linked to that music, and that again is linked to its text and context. And soon I'll give some examples. Memories, what kinds of memories it evokes when we hear a particular musical sound, and of course histories that get linked. And each of these we can think through in terms of Gurbani Kirtan, Sikhi, our memories of our families, our lives, Sikh history, the history of Guru Sahibs and all that. But we can also think of an alternative scenario where music is amplifying some other kind of ras and some other kind of message and ethics. So you can think, for example, nowadays, ads, for example, commercials. Music is a very powerful means of amplifying messages of ads, and we often get hooked to those very catchy tunes that ads have, and that is one way that they create a ras inside us, ras which wants us to experience the good that is being, aimed for our purchase. So, the musical sound gets linked to an iPhone or an iPad or a particular vacation somewhere, and these are very powerful means of music to create that kind of ras. So the question for me is then, har ras this is a little bit uneven here, har ras or an-ras. Okay? Both these are terms from Gurbani, right? Har ras is that ras which is linked to Hari or Har. Now Har means to take away. Harna is to take away. Take away what? Suffering. So Vaheguru is conceptualized as Har or Hari because Vaheguru takes away suffering. Now what does it mean to take away suffering? That's actually an ethical action, right? If you think of being like Vaheguru and taking away somebody's suffering, then that is done through ethical action. So the very idea of experiencing har ras is to experience in our bodies divine virtues, right? To experience what it is to have empathy, to experience what it is to have kindness, to experience what it is to treat somebody as equal, to give them human dignity and not create a society with inequality. So my focus here is that ras is something we experience, and the flavor of that ras really comes from that text and context. So when we talk about har ras, amrit ras, naam ras, ram ras, all of these have ethical connotations. You know? Amrit ras, amrit that does not die, something that is always there, and that is truth, right? Truthfulness. So the very conceptualization of divine, of Vaheguru, is one of divine virtues, and the very experience of har ras is the experience of divine virtuosity. And then we have the other anras. Guru Sahib used the word anras, the other ras. And what is the other ras, right? And here I will allude to this Shabad, which is going to be my example, also for my musical example, that what is anras? Kanchan nari mein jiyo luhat hai, moh meetha maya, kar andar ghode khushi, man anras laya, har prabjit na aagai, kyun chuta mere har raya. And now the translation that I've provided is sort of an interpretive translation. And we do have a set of translations that are really circulating widely on the internet through all the software, etc. And I do use that, but then I like to sort of give an interpretation to it and not translate it literally. So my translation is, and from there I derive the meaning of anras, when our being or inclination, so Jio I have translated as being and inclination, is immersed in the greed for wealth, that is Kanchan. Nari, I have, that gave me a little pause, because typically Nari will be translated as woman. And in that context, when Guru Sahibs were writing, we can sort of try to think about why this word Nari was used there. And of course, one of the contexts was where the men had power and women were objectified and had a certain presence in the arena of consumption, right? They were consumption items, and still today they can be that. And if I have to give a message to our young women, I would like to say, try not to become an object. Live your life so that you are proud for your virtues, your abilities, not for those things that you put on your body. So don't become objects is my, following on the morning panel, my message to young girls. So getting back here, I have translated it as sexual pursuits, and this can be open to discussion. I kind of was thinking, what should I put there? So I finally rested on that. Anyway, worldly pleasures for moh, and then ghar mandar ghode khushi, I have translated it as conspicuous consumption, because I think that this is one of the biggest problems of our society today is conspicuous consumption. The display of wealth, even our gurdwaras have now become sites of display of wealth, and I think that is something that our Guru Sahib really rose up against and spoke against. So I think I would not like to say house, temple, horses, because we need a home for security, we need a home for shelter, that's all right. It is when the home becomes a site of conspicuous consumption, that's when Guru Sahib said that it falls into the array that goes away from ethics. All right. So I would love to hear from you about this translation. Also, the last line, it says, "Kyo chuta mere haraya," is often translated as, why did I lose my Lord or Vaheguru? But I have translated as, if all this anras is there, then hey, it's not surprising that we lost Vaheguru, right? Kyo chuta is big surprise, of course. If we are immersed in all that, what else do we expect? So this is my take on the translation. I would love your thoughts later on. So how do we get from anras to harras? And when my argument is that, whoa, 5 minutes, okay. When music is paired with Gurbani, har ras is created. It is created from the Gurbani words. It is created from the context of the Gurdwara. So I'm going down that list again, right? Text, context, associations, memories, histories. Right? The context is that of the Gurdwara, the Sangat. The langar is associated with it. Langar stands for equality, you know, the concept of seva. So this is we create here what I call an ecology of ethics, an ecology of love for Guru Sahib, an ecology where the message of Gurbani can be amplified. And so music, when played in such a context, takes on those associations, takes on the meanings of that context, of that environment, and that is how music generates then haras. Okay, associations can be professional and social as well. So I don't want to limit it only to the Gurdwara. When we come to the Gurdwara, we bring our associations with us to the Gurdwara, and of course history. So I want to move on to the music a little bit. I'm going to play this shabad that we just saw the text of, and this shabad rendition is by no one else but the most respected Bhairajinder Singh Ragi. And I want to bring your attention to the way repetition and variation is used, and also to the phrasing of the musical phrasing through which the shabad is presented. So this same shabad can be sung in many different ways, and I want to bring attention to the particular way that repetition, variation and phrasing has been done here to amplify the message of Gurbani. Okay. Oh, we didn't connect this. Just in speech, repeat this so many times and hold your attention, right? And through music, through this kind of repetition and variation, the repetition becomes pleasing, in fact. And being pleased is a very important way of creating ras. And then when it is paired with Gurbani, that pleasing ras takes the form of hadras. So the ras in music is pleasing no matter where it is. It has to be pleasing to appeal to us. But to give it that shape and color, we need Gurbani. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes to show the phrasing in this one, because the phrasing in the next line is very beautifully done. And it is no surprise that he is such a light Ragi Sahib, because he is really a very fine composer.
Karmanda
just wrap up.
Can you continue?
Sorry?
Continue.
Oh, thank you. I'll just take a few seconds. So what I try to give through these examples is how music amplifies the message. Now, by immersing ourselves in Gurbani Kirtan repeatedly and for a greater and greater proportion of time, we can replace unras with harras. Because most of our time we are listening to music that is creating unras. And on Sundays, 1 hour is not enough to replace that unras with harras. So we have to engage more and more in those actions, in that kind of music that helps us replace unras with harras. And what are some of the ways we can increase the effectiveness of Gurbani Kirtan? And again, I want to come back to that, how we are responsible to make our contribution to this world is to stay away from greed for wealth and conspicuous consumption in particular, and the craving of the company of the wealthy and powerful, irrespective of their ethics. And that brings me back to Guru Nanak Sakhi. Let's give harras a chance, because if we don't give harras a chance, then all the kirtan and all that's around us will not make a difference. Okay, thank you for listening, and sorry about the few minutes of extra time. Bye, Gutika Khalsa. Bye.
If you have anything else to share in your talk, can you put it on the web, please?
Yes, thank you.
I'm sure most of us wanted that to continue, but in the essence of time, while I collect the questions, please feel free to hand them to the gentleman here. So Inderjit, I'll confess the first one I'll start with. I'll give you my question. Could you talk a little bit specifically about the Nirdharit Rag and how that plays a role in the Shabads? For instance, the Shabad that you showed is in Rag Gaudi in Guru Granth Sahib. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this is a huge topic. So we all know that in Sri Guru Granth Sahib, most of the Shabad, not all, but most of the Shabad are arranged in Rag. And there are different ways that Ragis, Sangat, scholars have understood what that means, why that Sirlek or Shabad heading is there. Some people think that we must sing only in that Rag because Guru Sahib sang in that Rag, and the only way to experience what Guru Sahib's experienced and what they meant, what they wanted to communicate, is through singing that Shabad in that particular Rag. So some people have that. Some musicians and Sangat and scholars say it's all right as long as it is in some Rag, but doesn't have to be that Rag. And some say, no, it's all right as long as we sing with love and sincerity to the Gurbani, whatever the music it is fine. Right? Now, I personally, in spite of the fact, and this was a journey for me, because I grew up learning Indian classical music and singing Shabad in Rag. And now through my research, and that's where I always entreat the Sangat to give me their views, I have come to the view that musical sound by itself is malleable, right? That's the point I was making. And we can try to give the message of Gurbani through any music, right? And it really depends upon our voice, our intonation. It depends on the associations. I think that our Guru Sahibs did not write in Sirlek, you may not sing the Shabad in any other way but Rag Gaudi. I don't think the Sirlek says that. In fact, there are only 5 places in Guru Granth Sahib where it says, sing to this melody. For example, it says, Chandra Hada Sohila Malik Muridi Tuni Gavani. Right? That Sirlek says, please sing this melody. That is the closest we have come to a musical instruction. And my now understanding is that the other is musical designation. Just like Guru Sahib said, I went there, I did this, right? And I believe we can still give the message without the same rag.
Thank you. In fact, that covered at least two other questions which are similar.
Okay.
But I want to ask a slight variation of the same question, which somebody from the Sangat asked. Would the message of Gurbani be the same if music from other cultures around the world was used? So kind of expand on that.
Yes, thank you so much. These are really very valuable questions. So again, the power of music on us really depends on our familiarity with that music, how much we like it. And you know that, a music that speaks to someone may not speak to you at all, however beautiful they think it is, and vice versa. And that is why it is very important that Gurbani be heard in the music that you like. That is why, often the Ragi Sahibs who do not sing in classical are being judged or looked upon. But after talking to a lot of them, I realized they are saying that our aim is Sangat nu Bani naal jodna hega. Now Sangat, of course, it is kind of like a catch-22, because if we keep engaging in Anras and liking certain kinds of music, then the Kirtan has almost to follow that. So there has to be some kind of balance there, right? But without those extreme points, I would say that that music has to be pleasing. So music from any culture is fine, is what I will say. And doctors are now, when they're looking at the power of music in healing, they are finding that it is music that the patient is familiar with and likes that can heal the patient even of acute pain, even from cancer. So that is a very important part.
Again, this is a very popular theme, so more questions on the same theme. Is the rag an integral part of the Bani, so that the words and the rag are intertwined, or is ras just a tool to deliver the message? I may be asking the same question in a different way.
Right. No, actually the question has two parts which kind of switches. So let me take each part, right? The first part is actually a question about whether the Sirlek is part of Bani and is integral part of the Shabad, right? So if I heard you correctly, so that if I read a Shabad and look and understand its meaning, if I start from, Rag Gaudi Mahla Chautha, which was this one, then is that part of the Gurbani message? And there are two ways to approach this. Okay? And first of all, we need to keep in mind that it is not only in the Sirlek that the word Rag is there, right? There are a lot of Shabads where Guru Sahibs have talked about Rag, and they have said, Gaudi Rag Sulakhani Je Khasme Chit Kare. Not all Rag is good, not all ways of singing Rag is good, but Rag is useful only if it serves this purpose. There are Shabads like Geet Rag Ghantal Sikure, Trehgun Upje Binse Dure. Rag can be used to forget Vaheguru, right? So we have to read all these together when we read Gurbani. And Guru Sahib is saying that if Rag Gaudi is sung in a way that brings us close to Guru Sahib, then it is Sulakhani. Then that Rag is good. It's a good tool. So I think it becomes a part of Gurbani when we read it through the other ways that Gurbani talks about it. Now the second part of it...
I think you answered it. You talked about ras being a tool.
Ras is not a tool. Ras is our experience. Ras is in our body. Ras is what we generate inside us. So I will leave it at that.
In fact, we've led to the next question.
Okay.
Is there any physiological evidence of har ras being produced in our bodies?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Somebody should say, when you go and do seva, that is har ras being produced in your body and leading you to action. Har ras is that when you feel Vaheguru inside you, and you are moved to do something that Vaheguru would do, that our Guru Sahibs would do, then you have har ras. Right? Because that's what Guru Nanak is doing there. That's har ras. Right? So it is our experiential body and what we do with that experience. That is har ras. Har ras does not reside objectively anywhere. Haras resides in our bodies. It is a subjective experience which is made up of our whole lives, our experiences, our thought processes. Haras flows in our blood, in our lymphatic system, in our hormonal system, in our neural mechanisms. That Haras is right there.
So just to press on that a little bit, since the word evidence was used and you mentioned research before,
Yes.
are you aware of any research that actually does measure or quantify such Haras?
Haras? No. And,
I made that question up earlier.
Yeah. See, the thing is, let me talk a little bit about quantification and sort of quantification of qualitative things. I'm not a great fan of quantity, often, and that is another of my pet peeves, that often we are always quoting numbers. We are so successful because so many people did this. Our university is so successful because so many people are enrolled in the university. But there are other measures. Our university is very successful because when there was this particular problem, so many of our students were there helping out, right? So when we start instead of this kind of quantitative measure and go into, how is Haras being used, and we can see that. And that's why we need to see Sikhs not just in Gurdwaras, but enacting Haras in society. When people start to say, oh, I know who a Sikh is, instead of saying a Sikh has a beard and a turban, or they go to the Gurdwara. When people start saying, I know who a Sikh is, because a Sikh is always enacting Haras, then we know that Haras is there. That is the evidence.
Thank you. One last question. Kirtan means different things to yoga centers. Since religions existed before the Gurus, is there something before the Guru Granth Sahib which relates to Kirtan?
Kirtan, thank you for that question. Kirtan is a pan-Indian phenomenon, and Kirtan by itself refers to singing of the divine praises and allowing one's body to be colored with the love of the divine. And I have purposely stayed away from talking about Haras and things just in terms of love and ecstasy and things like that, because I think it really takes away the teeth from Gurbani. And Gurbani's teeth are right here, It is love. What is love for Vaheguru? Love for Vaheguru is understanding the virtues of Vaheguru and enacting those virtues. So Kirtan has been there always, but in Shabad Kirtan is the singing of the divine praises, or I always use divine virtues through music. And there is, in all traditions, Kirtan is there. Now, was Kirtan used with yoga before it became a part of this diasporic space where Shabad Kirtan is, or parts of Kirtan have presence in yoga? I think, the concept of Nad Yoga was there. Whether the concept of Kirtan itself was used in yoga, I'm not sure. So that's something I would like to look at. But the concept of sound as a means to join, yoga means to join, and to join with the divine is a concept that has been there, definitely. But I think our Guru Sahibs challenged that. They challenged sound as a objective means. They said only when sound is paired with Gaudi Rag Se Lakhni Je Khasme Chit Kare. Sound by itself does not have that power, Guru Sahib said. You have to pair it with the text and with the context and with the associations for that power.
With that, we'd like to thank Dr. Inderjit Kaur with a Jaikara. If you could hold your clapping for a while, only because in this conference, probably a much better, just given the topic, way of congratulating her is Jo Bole So Nihal.